Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Big Ideas on the Go. I have with me today Mario Duarte, VP of Security at Snowflake. So, Mario, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Dimitri. Good to be here.
So, Mario, maybe just to get started a little bit, just tell me a little bit about your journey. Like, where you've been and how did you get to where you are?
I've always said I'm pretty blessed to be doing something that I have loved since I was a kid. I got into, I love security back when I watched, and I'm going to date myself, war games. And I always wanted
I saw
to
that.
be,
We're going to both date ourselves.
yeah.
I saw that.
And so anyway, I always wanted to be in this industry. Just back in the 80s and early 90s, it just wasn't a thing in those days, quite honestly, even though war games talked about it. So fast forward to the late 90s, and I got an opportunity to go work at EY, and I was trained by former NSA folks who were now working for EY, and they trained me on how to break into companies. And so that's how my career started. I was a terrible security pen tester, security red team, so I wasn't very good at it. But I enjoyed it, and that was the beginnings of my humble career.
Yeah, no, look, fantastic. And look, and what a great way to start, right? Putting yourself in the shoes of the bad actors. So, Big ID, not obviously, but Big ID has kind of a little bit of background and focus around data. I'd be curious kind of to get your historical take about the evolution of data security, not just kind of penetrating organizations, but what do you think, you've probably seen, if you're old enough to have seen war games, you probably remember DLP and other kind of similar technologies. So kind of what's your take on the evolution of data security?
When I was trying to break into companies, one ultimately wanted to get to the keys of the kingdom. And it wasn't just getting root on a machine for the sake of getting root on a machine, which was great, by the way. Not that's exciting as well, or getting the domain administrator to an AD infrastructure. Ultimately, it was about what else can you get out of that, and that ultimately leads you to data. What kind of data? And data has always been around us, right? It's not just it's a new thing in the cloud. No, data has been part of business, part of organizations since the Roman times. Right? So it's just
It has.
just part of
It was on papyrus back then, but yes.
Exactly.
So
I think that, go ahead, Dimitri.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, so your thoughts in terms of obviously after the Roman time, kind of more in the modern technological period, what are your thoughts around, data obviously is a big target, right? What do you think's been effective? Where's the industry and how has the industry kind of evolved?
I think we've been living in I think organizations have been living in a imaginary world where we thought that our data, we can rely on our on-prem protection, having, firewalls and physical security to protect that data, right? You build this fortress around it. But that's always been a fantasy, in my opinion, whether it was physical security before we actually started using things like TCP/IP or any of that stuff. It was always been a facade, quite honestly. So now, fast forward to cloud. Cloud has made it so easy to be productive, so easy to get things done much quicker, because that physical aspect, the thing about installing a server, a hardware device, a network switch, that physicality aspect has gone away and it's become virtual. It's real easy. It's low friction. And that's great productivity. But sometimes these systems, these cloud environments that we go use are complex, quite honestly. And there's a lot of opportunity for human error. And when human errors are introduced into this, in which we're never going to get rid of human errors, but if you think about the cloud and you think about data residing in the cloud, a misconfiguration that is not uh, you don't keep an eye on and alerted on can allow an intruder from outside or internally to gain access to that important data.
Yeah, look, I agree with you a lot. I think, there was this kind of perception for a long time that your data was secure in a physical data center. And, the joke I sometimes say is in New Jersey, where a lot of the banks had their data centers. And it gave you this kind of false sense of confidence because there was a door with a padlock and, you'd have to break in. And so it was somehow kind of more secure. And you're right, in the cloud, it's a lot easier to add data. And so, more data gets accumulated, but it's also a lot easier to lose data through simple misconfigurations around access and so forth. So clearly the cloud is kind of overtaking the data center, and I expect that's going to continue. Where do regulations like privacy, GDPR, CCPA, probably things you're familiar with, but regulations more broadly, like how do they affect your thinking around data security?
I think it's a double-edged sword. Right? I think that I think it's important to have these regulations. I think it's important to have some meat in some sort of. I think if I go more deeper into the historically how these things have happened is for many years organizations have kept quiet about their own security breaches. And I know that they have existed. You can go look at the public internet and you hear about these security incidents that happen, that were publicly announced years later after it happened. And that's because a lot of companies just didn't have a reason to expose that, to announce that, unfortunately. So I do think that regulations like GDPR have helped in forcing companies to be more transparent about these events, to allow their customers, their employees, other folks who they work with to be notified when a security incident has occurred, and to do it on a timely basis. I think it's extremely important. I also think there's a little bit of a double-edged sword in there, in that, for a lot of security practitioners, mention monitoring, security monitoring. Try to say that in Germany and try to be successful at it.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't work really well, does it? But then at the same time, we're asked to protect this data, but we can't even monitor necessarily the employees who are going to manage the data, who are going to access that data, right? Because we're being constrained by these regulations.
Yeah, no, look, an insider, I think as we've seen at some banks left unnamed, we've seen that kind of insider risk be pretty significant, right? Whether it's misuse, inadvertent, or deliberate in some cases. You touched on a subject around kind of breach notification. So obviously there's draft laws right now federally in the US around the requirement, we're forcing companies to be more transparent around when they've had that. And today there was testimony, I believe in the Senate, from a fairly well-known CISO of a technology company talking about, incidents that they had and that weren't disclosed. So where do you land? What is the responsibility of an organization in terms of transparency? 100% transparency, or is it a little more of a gray area?
Of course, I want more transparency as a consumer. I think it's a little bit more. I would say that sometimes the more information we have about events, the more we inundate it with information, the more we become overloaded. It could be such a thing as too much information, and maybe some of this information is not as relevant, it's not as applicable, it's not as huge as we think it is. But the problem is the real important events get lost because of too much information that we're getting. And that's the area I'm a little concerned. So here's what's going to happen, Dimitri, and you know this very well. What's going to end up happening is companies are going to go completely conservative, and they're going to announce and report every imaginable thing, even though it really doesn't have an impact into the data of the customer or into an impact into the organization, but because people are not going to take a chance to be potentially taken to court or have fines on them, they're going to go the extreme, and we're going to get overloaded with incidents that really don't mean anything.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me of the kind of the security tools from the 2000s that just overwhelmed you with incidents to the point that it kind of dulls you, right? You don't know where what needs remediation or what needs prioritization. And I think there's kind of a whole industry around SOAR. And you're right. I think if everybody's reporting everything, there's going to come a point where nobody's noticing anything, right? It's all just kind of noise, and people just stop paying attention. And general population certainly doesn't have an ability to distinguish kind of important events from less important events. So yeah, I am curious. Now, you touched on another subject I'd like to double click on, where you talked about access and different rules in different countries. You talked a little bit about Germany. You work at a multinational. Most companies, even startups like BigID, are multinational. I think we operate around 18 countries, or maybe even more than that now. There's obviously been a lot more in terms of regulation at a country by country level. Certainly GDPR was at a region, but now people are kind of creating versions of GDPR and adding extensions to it on a country by country. What do you think about that kind of balkanization around data sovereignty, data breach response? How does that impact your thinking, and how should it impact other organizations thinking that do straddle multiple jurisdictions?
I wish I had an easy answer, but there isn't one. And I think that the best advice that I can do from somebody who's works in a multinational company, and that we deal with this problem, is ensure that you partner up with good legal representation in each of these countries that are experts in this particular area. Not just any kind of legal, security person, but a legal privacy person that specializes in these particular regions, these particular countries, and learn from them and help to implement some of their models that may reduce some of the challenge that you have. So what does that mean, Mark? Well, let me give you an example. In Germany, it is hard, as I mentioned, monitoring employees, and I don't mean monitoring keystrokes or or even websites that they go visit. I'm talking about stuff that potentially can harm the company, right? Downloading stuff that potentially could hurt the company or in the customer's data. So you're kind of you are handcuffed to do a good job, an effective job in Germany. So a strategy that we're hearing that's useful is to create a security policy and let your employees know in Germany that the work laptop you're handing them, must only be used for work purposes. End of story. And then that allows us, that facilitates, that opens up security teams' ability to be able to do their job more effectively in countries like in Germany. You see that? So it's just a little bit of a nuance on that. I think it's a big one, but maybe we call it little. But we would not know that unless you have partners, experts, legal experts in these particular areas, in those particular regions.
And on that teaming up question, and maybe we could kind of use this as kind of a final kind of question to kind of leave behind. You talk about teaming up with privacy, right? And obviously there's different privacy codes around the world, both current regulations, changes in regulations. You see the same thing around kind of retention for a variety of reasons, for different kind of classes of information. Where do you see that intersection between what you do in security, what legal does around privacy, other types of regulations, maybe GLBA in finance, PHI in healthcare, PCI, anybody in retail, and also the data organization, right? Data historically has had an interest. They're a big customer. The data organization is a big customer for where you are today. What is that role for the CISO amongst, the data organization that's trying to get more value from the data, and the privacy organization that cares about some of the regulatory risk around the data?
I think what we need to be is a voice for where things, I think with the CISOs sit in an intersection between legal privacy and what engineers need and productivity, et cetera. And what we need to provide to the business is show them the trade-offs. Here's, if we do this with privacy, then we're going to lose some security in here. Or if we enforce security here, we're going to potentially impact the privacy of our employees. Notice I'm focusing on privacy of employees. Privacy of our customers' data is for any company, I would argue, is rule number one. You have to protect your customers' data. End of story.
You do.
Okay. But the privacy area that I'm thinking about and what I'm talking when organizations, some of the big challenges is around the employees. So the more privacy we grant employees, which is okay, great, wonderful, et cetera. But the more you do that, the less you're able to monitor and alert when that employee does bad things or misconfigure things. So what we security leaders must demonstrate or must show to both legal and engineering and finance, et cetera, whatever the team is, to at least let them understand the trade-offs, the risk for either option, and understand that there's no solution, no one solution. That whatever solution you pick has its positives and it has its negatives, and that you have to expect some adjustments through the years. And those adjustments come in the form of newer technology or different ways that we work or countries that we're working at or new regulations. Okay. And I think, by the way, this is where companies and Dimitri, I have to applaud BigID in this. This is where companies like BigID can help, right? They can help identify some of this information and give us a little more context, who's using it and why they're using it.
Yeah, no, look, and obviously that's part of, our kind of our mission statement, or at least the belief in our mission statement. Maybe I'll ask you one more question, just kind of, something you touched on over the course of the conversation and just now in terms of kind of product and solutions. Where do you see that balance between process? And you talked about, an example of that is that laptop in Germany and kind of having that segregated off just for work, and product, right? There's a million security products out, probably an overwhelming number. All of them offer compelling features, many overlapping. So how do you find and strike that right balance between what is ultimately kind of a decision around how you want people to operate inside of the company, and then kind of tools to provide that kind of additional visibility? What is that balance?
You hit the word, the most important word is visibility. I would argue that most companies, even if they think they know where their data is at, I would argue they don't know where all their data is at, quite honestly.
Yeah.
I would also argue that they don't know what, I'm using this generic term, use data, but what is data? What classification is it? Is it critical? Does it need to be protected? Right? We'll protect data. There's different, if it's public data, critical data, but also if it's PHI, PII, what is that? And I think companies are just drowning in data, quite honestly, and they don't even understand what the implications are. They don't understand that I should be protecting that data because in this country, that data represents that, and you must protect it this way. And here are the resources who should be accessing that. I think most companies are struggling with that.
Yeah, and look, there's a few vendors left unnamed who are making it easier to put data in the cloud, right? So the volume of data that's getting created is not just growing linearly, it's growing geometrically, right?
Exponentially.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Now everything is connected. So whether it's a device, so look, I think knowing your data, obviously, we believe in it so much, we put it in our tagline. So I concur. And on that final note, I'd like to say thank you for coming on our podcast. I really appreciate you joining us, Mario.
Thank you, Dimitri. It was a great time. Thank you.
Yeah, and for those in the audience, please, I encourage you to download this podcast. It's great on the weekends, also on the weekdays. And for those of you who listen to the podcast, we would be thrilled if you subscribed and also left us comments. So thank you, Mario, and thank you, audience.